So we've heard a lot of bad news today, but during this time where so many women's rights and democracy is so under attack, I am beyond comforted to be in this room today. This room is filled with powerful women leaders, all of whom are working together, sharing ideas, and trying to make the world a better place. And as Mary Robinson said just so beautifully this morning, there's a great sense of trust in this room, that we trust each other. So, but the Reykjavik Global Forum is not about sitting around and feeling comfortable. It is about using the power of the people in this room to make real and lasting change. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Last year, the forum introduced 4 action items: equal pay, equal representation, ending gender-based violence. I stuttered for a second, and then I realized they're actually all over everywhere. So ending gender-based violence and equal parental leave. And I'm very excited that we have a wonderful panel of experts who's going to help us to understand ways, practical, actionable solutions that we can address these items. So I'm going to first turn to Senator Dasko. So you are the co-founder of Equal Voice in Canada that's helping to get more Canadian women elected. Can you talk about equal representation? What practical solutions should the room know about to get more women elected to office?
Thanks, Susanna. I'm delighted to be here. And I just want to say, friends, colleagues, the world needs more women elected. It's as simple as that. Equal representation is what we absolutely need, considering all of the issues we are facing today. So this panel is trying to talk about solutions and best practices and things that we should be doing. I've got a list of 3 things. I'm going to start with 2 of them. And I know you've heard this before. We've heard about gender quotas. And this is, I think, the #1 policy that we should be pursuing. Gender quotas, legislated gender quotas, they should have targets that are equality targets. They can be as part of a constitution of a country, they can be part of electoral laws, they could be part of parity laws. But this is something that we really should be pursuing. And I want to draw your attention to something that UN Women is doing right now, and they have started a portal on gender quotas. And it's a wonderful resource. I urge you to go there, and what you're going to find are the statistics on the number of countries and the systems they have and the way they're instituting gender quotas. And the fact that UN Women is doing it gives great credibility to the exercise. And I just want to pull this up. 94 countries, 94, see the number? That is the number of countries who have legislated gender quotas. My country doesn't. I don't know why, because Canada is a country where we believe in gender equality, and yet we are 65th in the world in terms of our representation of women in politics. So it's shameful. We've really fallen behind badly on that score, and a big conversation there, but so that's the #1 thing I want to say. And then something that would seem a little more modest, and that is data collection. And another thing that UN Women is doing, I'm really high on UN Women these days, they're doing wonderful things. One of the things that they are doing is they are urging countries to collect statistical data on gender and diversity measures in terms of their electoral bodies and in terms of their statistical bodies. And you may think that this is all solved in the world, but it's not. A lot of countries, including Canada, doesn't collect formal data and statistics on this. We're talking about disaggregated data, we're talking about intersecting data. So it's something that I want to put on the table for us to consider and for you to consider when you think about what your country needs to do. Kind of a basic step.
Awesome, thank you so much. And now Stella, you've got a nice bridge there about UN Women. So Stella leads UN Women in Iceland. So can you talk to us about a practical solution around gender-based violence and ending it?
Yes, thank you. I think ending gender-based violence is a prerequisite for gender equality. If we talk about ending something, that's something that we need to put an urgency on, because how can we talk about gender equality when women are not free in their homes, at their workplace, on their streets, at the university, at the bar, or wherever we are? So for me, it's a crucial thing. But how do we do it? I mean, we have been talking about policies and laws, which are very important, but I think also we need to start adding another element into the equation, and that's opening up a dialogue to boys and men. I mean, they are in 80% are the perpetrators of gender-based violence, so we need to go to the root cause, but as well we need to create allies. Not all men commit gender-based violence. Where are they? Why are they not standing up? And I think this has been seen today in a lot of discussions, that the role of men and boys, we need to activate that, and we need to start the dialogue. I have figures from the European Union that the cost of gender-based violence yearly is 366 billion euros. Just in the European Union. Can you imagine how much gender-based violence is costing us globally? I'm not talking about the human rights terminology, which is of course at the top, but maybe we need to start also talking about how much it costs us and how much we are losing with not having a gender-based violence-free world. And I think we need to start showcasing how gender equality benefits all of us, that it's not only women that benefit. I think Iceland is a great example. We have the most gender equal country in the world, but at the same time, I mean, our country is quite high on the list. It's doing well financially. We have freedom, we have security and peace. And actually, men live longer in Iceland than in many other countries because of gender equality. So how it benefits men, we need to start talking about that to get them as allies. So that's my take today.
Thank you, Stella. And now turning to the good man on our panel, Dominic, tell us about equal parental leave and what we can do about it.
Thank you, Susanna. I'm going to take a slightly different approach and build on something that Donna said, which was around data collection. One thing that we're doing at Oliver Wyman together with the World Bank and women political leaders is looking at the impact that women have in legislative bodies of government. And what we find is that if you have representation that is sizable, the laws change, and the laws change for the better. And in that way, you know, I like to think about it combining the Reykjavik Action Items, because representation matters, it moves the needles, and it provides the legal grounds for equal parental leave, ending gender-based violence, and equal pay. And that, you know, the World Bank is measuring that in the Women, Business and the Law Index, which is looking at the equal opportunity for women to participate in the economy. And the shocking news is, well, I guess to no one in this room, but the shocking reality is there's no country in the world where we are at 1. So perfect equality. I think the best country is Iceland, but even Iceland is only at 90, 92 or something. So that correlation is very powerful because it tells us, moving the needle, you need to have representation. And representation, I think Donna gave us some good insights on how to get there. In my opinion, is really the big change maker in getting women to participate in the economy and to end gender-based violence, to create equal parental leave, and to create equal pay. Final comment I want to make. We're basing that research in one key claim that the IMF and the World Bank share, and which I strongly believe in, and Kristalina said it during UNGA very powerfully, that global economic growth could have a step increase by almost 20 to 25%, plus doubling our growth rates, if women were equally participating in the economy. So who tells me that this is a zero-sum game? I mean, this is BS, right? So it would be better off for everyone.
Okay, well, perfect segue to our last panelist, Dr. Anino. Equal pay, what can we do?
First of all, delighted to be back here, and I think we really needed to be here convening and coming together, and it's been really inspiring so far. I'd like to start with just a couple of data points, because I think it's important to know what we're talking about. So when we're talking about equal pay, and we don't have time to actually ask everybody, that would be wonderful, but think about it. What is that gender pay gap? What is it? What is the number we're trying to deal with? We all have our various ideas, but I'll just give you a few data points. In the US, the pay gap is 14% approximately, and in the EU, it's on average 13%. Here in Iceland, it's 9%, and the lowest that we have actually is in Luxembourg, which is 0.7%. But what that tells you is that there's a great disparity. And the devil is in the details. These are big numbers, right? Or rather, these are macro numbers. But when you look at sectors and different levels, it changes. So at the managerial level, we have a more disparity in terms of the gender pay gap. But also to be clear, when we talk about equal pay for equal work, very often that means for the same job that is being done, are men and women being paid the same? But there's also more to it than that. And this is where the gender pay gap comes into it, which actually says, if you look at an organization, for example, what's the average earning of a woman compared to an average earning of the man? And they may be doing different jobs, right? Because you have more men in leadership, but that is also important. So it's not just having equal pay for equal work, but really just to have parity, period. Yeah. Solutions. First of all, policy is the first step. But in the EU, there has been policy since, I think it was 1958 or something, equal pay, equal work, and we are where we are. So policy on its own doesn't do it. You have to have implementation as well. You have to have monitoring as well, which is really important. Where we are right now, at the rate of progress, things are changing, getting better. On the gender pay gap, it's actually 257 years in the US it'll take. So it's even worse than when we look at it overall. What is key, and we've just spoken about that, is data. Data is important, and in this case, transparency. And by transparency, we mean that when you're looking at job roles and they're being advertised, do the companies and organizations, are they transparent in what the salary is? Because what happens is, if women have already earned less in a previous job, and you don't have transparency, very often you go into a new job and you're negotiating, and they're negotiating based on what you earned. So having transparency is also very important. Having data and data reporting is very important. Implementation of that is really very important. But I'd like to just close by just giving you a little bit of good news in all of this. And the S&P 500, the US biggest companies, the women CEOs on average earn more than the male CEOs. The Russell 3000, similar. But of course, S&P, you only have 40 out of 500. So obviously you have probably the best. But actually, it's because of bonuses. And so when it's performance related and is measurable by data, then change happens. Data, transparency, policy, really very important.
We have a theme here, which is data. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to come back to Stella, and we're going to do a very quick round of questions. So we have 4 action items. Should we have a priority? Is there one that needs to be solved first to sort of act as a linchpin to make the rest of them easier?
I was focusing on gender-based violence, and I think by eradicating gender-based violence could act as a catalyst in solving equal representation. Because we see gender-based violence as a threat to democracy. And if women are afraid of being harassed, as we are seeing now, the numbers and figures are showing us that more women are stepping down from partaking in politics, we need to think about that. That's not something we want to see, that less women partake. We want to see the numbers increase. So I think these 2 items could go hand in hand, and by eradicating one, it would increase the the numbers of women in politics.
Yes, absolutely. With Running Start, we often see all the deterrents that make women say, I don't want to do that.
Exactly.
Dominic, I'm going to turn to you. Quick answer, public or private sector? Like where do you think the most influence is going to come?
I think that they both have to play their role, but as Anino said, and Maria, by the way, earlier in her speech as well, that's a sort of medium-term perspective because it will take time to create representation. But there's no one that says, you know, private sector couldn't lead by example without the laws and the policies being there. There's no law prohibiting a company to implement equal pay and equal parental leave, right? I mean, so I would advocate that the private sector should lead by example and maybe show the way for the policymakers.
Okay, that was very short and sweet and very poignant. And Dr. Anino, as we have seen so much in the past few years, progress is not linear. So what do we do to prevent backsliding? So we do lots of work, we get solutions. How do we prevent backsliding?
It's a long game. And I think that we should know that the answers we aren't going to get there today, but we need to because it's additive. So the one thing is it should be a way of life, just doing what we're doing, advocating for change and making change. So it's a standard. It's not a project. It is part of life. The other thing that I think is critical and it's really important, and we've touched on it many times, is collaboration and scaling up. Whatever it is we're doing in our own part of the world or in our own jobs or organizations, we need to work and collaborate because it's a big problem. And therefore, working together, really, getting policy changing, advocacy, transparency, all of that really needs a large-scale collaboration.
I love that idea, like make it just a part of the fabric of how we do things. Donna, the last question, an out-of-the-box solution to get more women elected to office, which is very near and dear to my heart. So what do you have?
I have an idea based on your idea of more transparency. Not every country can implement quotas. My country obviously can't.
Or mine.
So I'm trying to think about some other ways. So I've been inspired by our experience with corporations. So we require corporations in Canada to file reports to be transparent about plans they have, not setting quotas, but tell us what your plans are to improve diversity in senior management and boards. So this idea can actually be taken into politics too, where we can require, in a legislated sense, the parties to file reports to tell us what their plans are. What are their policies? What plans do they have? Do they have timetables? Do they have targets? Another way to do it, not as strong as quotas, but still another step. So, and also I want to say, all of these issues are related. You know, you work on them together. More women helps deal with violence issues, helps deal with pay equity and other issues, and then those in turn empower women to enter politics. So I think, you know, we still have to encourage women to run, but these issues will be solved together, I believe.
Okay, so the last thing in our little over a minute, this audience that we have here, they are made up of extremely powerful people who have a lot of influence and who can actually get things done. Give them some directives, please. I would love for you all to just start and speak to the audience and tell them something to take home that they can do that's practical. I mean, you've broad form, but now just
mine is simple.
Short.
Transparency in your organizations. Get to publish the data and all of that.
Perfect.
Yeah, we need to continue. We need to create allies, solidarity, positivity, unity. That's all we need. And we need funding, because gender equality doesn't fall down from the sky. Like with every private sector business, you need investment. And we need investment in gender equality. So, and answer to the anti-rights movement. We need to stand up against it.
Yes.
So as a parliamentarian now, I've come to focus on what's practical, things that we can actually accomplish. We can't achieve perfection, but even incremental steps will help us. So I urge people to go back to their countries and think about doable things. think about what you can do in your system, how you can move the needle in your country, in whichever way it works. And also, I just want to add one more thing. Don't let anybody tell you that we can't find the women to run. Don't let them tell you that. It's not true. Push back. Not true.
You're here.
So there's a little coaching framework I like to use for myself, which is 3 concentric circles. The smallest one is control, influence, and concern. And leaders spend most of their time in the concern circle, which they don't have any control or influence over. So I encourage everyone in this room to think about what they control, what they influence, and focus your energy on that. And I promise you it's more than we all currently anticipate.
Okay, awesome. Thank you all so much.
That's the practical
Thank you.
approach, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.